Welcome to Compression, the quest to $100 million in just 1 year. Join me, your host, Logan Freeman, in this one-of-a-kind interactive podcast experience where I am on a quest to compress 3 years of achievement and production into 12 months. And no, the answer is not to just work harder. I'm bringing you not only ideas and concepts that are complete at the theoretical level, but they're also effective at the applied level. Look, guys, knowledge is not power. It is potential power. Knowledge plus massive strategic action equals power. We're talking about strategy, systems, accountability, all in real time. This is Compression.
Once again, my name is Lawrence Latty, and I am also a member of the Myers Methods class, and also my coach, and I'm also part of the GOB network also. I just want to welcome everybody here again, and now we're going to get started because I'm going to tell you something, I've been waiting for this. This is a long time. Everybody get your fire gear on and fire extinguisher by your laptop, right? Take some notes. First, I want to thank Jerome and Logan for taking time out because right now Jerome was on vacation with his family, and I want to thank him for taking time out from his vacation. I also want to thank Logan because Logan is busy, Mr. Kansas City. He's no more. He's no more than Mahomes, Patrick, right? When I listen to the Compression podcast, they're like peanut butter and jelly. They're so good, right? They're so good. Well, I think one time I posted they were like Campbell soup. Ooh, good. Listen, if you don't hear his podcast, if you don't subscribe to his podcast, then something's wrong. You're missing something. So once again, Jerome and Logan, take it away, and thank you for coming again.
So full disclosure, Logan and I have planned nothing for you guys tonight. We are going to come and just be authentic, as genuine as possible. Lawrence, I appreciate you asking us to come in and do this. It was probably 2 or 3 months ago when we first talked about it, but just been super impressed with you and your growth over the past 6 months, and even before when I first saw you last year, just to see where you've come from to where you're going and what you've done in between that. Super impressive. For those of you who don't know, Lawrence is retiring in a couple of months after a long career with the New York Transit Authority. So this is amazing. I'm super excited to see the next iteration of him. He could just put his feet up and relax, but Lawrence is dead set on growing a huge real estate portfolio, and he's got some really big dreams for generational wealth for his family. First thing we wanted to do was talk about the Inception story for Compression. If you have no idea what Compression is, it's a podcast. Logan and I get on every week, and over the past 3 years, Logan has done about $100 million in real estate transactions, both through brokerage and ownership with his company FTW. And he's
150 now.
Excuse me. I'm just talking about before. You know what? You tell the Inception story. Go ahead, man. I'm out of the way. I'm just here to go along on the ride because that's what I do.
Well, first off, I want to say thank you to all of our veterans on this call and active duty military. I can't say thank you enough for everything that you do to protect this country and let guys like myself run around and do everything that we can do. So I was just blown away on all those intros on how many folks are serving our country. So thank you guys for that. Jerome, we've talked about this Inception story quite a bit. I think it's an interesting one in the sense that, I'm a pretty reflective guy. I don't know. You guys can ask Jerome if that's true or not, but I try to be self-aware in the sense that emotionally intelligent people, I think, are much more successful in life in the sustainable way that I think about success. And so, whenever I was thinking about, I have a different podcast, the Live Free Investors podcast. It just got stale. Who wants to listen to me interviewing the same people that everybody else has interviewed for the last 4 years, right? Like it just got stale for me. I did like 70 of those interviews and I was like, man, I need something new. I need something fresh. I need an interactive podcast experience that allows folks to go on some sort of journey together. And Jerome and I studied Donald Miller story brand, and we've tried to integrate the brand script into this new podcast experience. And so, I use LinkedIn on a few different ways. I use it to network, obviously, but I also use it to test ideas. And I think very entrepreneurial. I've read a lot of books on entrepreneurship. If you guys are watching, you can probably see some of the books behind me. Also, my beautiful baby girl, who's 2 now, Isabella, is right behind me. I need to get Z-Man. I have a son too. But, when I was thinking about setting up my goals for 2021, I thought about the last 3 years. So I got fired from my job 4 years ago. And that was the day that I said, no more. I took the red pill 4 years ago. And I started to think about, okay, what can I do differently? And how do I set my life up for success? And so I started reading books. I started going through the process. I started educating myself. And I got really heavy into goal setting and understanding the mechanics of goal setting and what that actually means, and how do you actually stick to goals? So creating habits and not necessarily goals. And then I came across this idea of mental models, and then eponymous laws, all these things that have been tried and true. I call them pre-Gutenberg. Okay, this is things that were around before the printing press and have still made their mark on society. And so I threw this idea up on LinkedIn to say, look, last 3 years, I've done 100 million in real estate. How do I do all of that in 1 year instead of, extrapolating that into 3 years? And if you know me and you follow me, I get up at 3 a.m. every single day. Bud Evans, you might know a guy named Jocko Willink. He's a retired Navy SEAL. And he wrote a book called Discipline Equals Freedom. And he always gets up at 4:30. Well, I said, if I could beat Jocko Willink up, maybe I'll be successful in life. So I started getting up at 4, and then I started getting up at 3:30, and then I started getting up at 3, because I realized with 2 kids under 2, from 3 to 6:30 is about the only time that I can own. So I threw this idea up on LinkedIn, but this post was the 6 journals that I had used, the high performance planner, for the last year. I put it up on LinkedIn, and I said, look, guys, this is six journals. 6 journals. You use one every two months. And I estimated the time that I spent in planning and reflecting using that journal to be around 522 hours. And that's 22 days. And I started thinking, I spent 22 days before my competition got up, planning, thinking, journaling, and trying to figure out what I needed to do for the rest of the week, the month, the quarter, the year. And that post went viral. It got over 22,000 views, 300 reactions, and 100 comments. And I said, okay, we got something here. So I talked to Jerome. I said, let's keep testing this out. We put another idea out. And I said, I wanted to compress time. I wanted to take the last 3 years of what I have accomplished and compress that into 1 year without working harder. Maybe working smarter or even less hard than I am right now or was. And this idea from compression, the name Compression, came to fruition. And that's where this podcast kind of, started. It was generated on LinkedIn, but it was also generated from the need for me to figure out how to tap into the laws of success, the Pareto's principle, Parkinson's law, the law of inertia, momentum, the compound effect, all of these different things, and actually bring them to folks and bring them along this journey. So I made a big claim and said, I'm going to do $100 million in real estate in 1 year, $100 million in real estate in 1 year. Kenneth obviously knows, Kenneth Hines on this call, but I'm a real estate broker here in Kansas City as well, helping out-of-state clients purchase real estate. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to do half there and half acquisitions. I don't think it's going to be quite portioned up that way, but I said, if I can do $100 million in 1 year, I'm compressing the last 3 years into one. How do I actually do that? And that's where this idea of compression came about. So we started to lay out what we're doing, how we're laying these goals out. What are we doing to stay accountable? And then every week we come on, we talk about wins, losses, biggest challenges. And the episodes, if you check out the podcast, the episodes are where I'm at on the goal. So right now we're sitting at, the last episode was 20.2 million. I'm proud to say it's going to be way higher probably the next time that we go. But, that's the Inception story. I know that was a long story, but I think that gets the point across to what compression is, or at least the purpose of it. Jerome, did I miss anything?
You didn't miss anything, but I'm a add, right? And so there was a post in November. Logan said, "Hey, I'm thinking about this." I slip in the word compression. And he's like, "Is that really the name?" Drop down. Logan goes out and interviews a few guys, right? And one of the folks that he talks to, what did he offer you? 40,000 for coaching for a year or 6 months or something?
Yeah,
Tell me
6 months.
that story. 6 months, right? So 40,000 for 6 months to help Logan get towards his goal. And then, I was fortunate enough. He came back. He said, "Jerome, I want to partner with you on the deal," right? And he said, "Are you interested? Are you willing to do this with me?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "But it's every Friday." He said, "It doesn't matter, right? Like I'm completely in on this. I know that you're willing to do whatever it takes for however long it takes in order to get done what you want to get done." And for me, there are very few people who are actually locked in at a level where you can make that commitment to somebody when they're going to put publicly, "I'm going to do this," right? And 100 million is a lot of real estate, right? There are people who've been doing it for a decade that haven't been able to accomplish that type of volume yet. And so to say that we're going to do that publicly in a year and document the process along the way is major for me, because most people aren't willing to proclaim what they're trying to accomplish. And so, if we miss a Friday, I mean, we've recorded on Saturdays at 5 o'clock in the morning, my time, 4 o'clock Logan's time, right? Just because we're committed to the end process. And so, if you check out, if you leave early, just remember this: the only way you get what you want out of life is to be willing to do whatever it takes for however long it takes until you get the result. And anytime that you give up on one of those two things, whatever it takes or however long it takes, then you're guaranteed not to get what you want. Pregnant pause there, because I want that to sink in, because that simplifies everything for everybody. So, we've been doing this we've got through the first quarter, and I think Lawrence wanted to do this session because most people have already given up on their New Year's resolutions or whatever they set out for. Fortunately, 2021 hasn't been like 2020, where a pandemic is starting at the end of the first quarter and everybody's trying to figure out what's going on. We've been living with this thing for a year. And so market conditions haven't really changed. Whatever you said you were going to do in January, probably most of those assumptions are still true. And so, for me, I wanted to come in and do a lot of Q&A with you all tonight, just to talk about where you are, what you're working through. And then if we can bring it back to compression, love to do that. Logan and I can talk for 3 hours if you guys don't have any questions, but definitely.
Yeah, let me rant for a few seconds here, because I got some stuff to say. Hold on, guys. Let me make sure AC on? All right, air conditioner's on, because it's about to get hot in here, okay? It's about to get hot. So we've talked about the Inception story. That all sounds good, right? And I'm the guy that, okay, cool. That's awesome. Great job. Pat yourself on the back, all that BS. But what the hell is it? Okay. It's about achieving more in less time, focusing on effectiveness more than efficiency. And we do this by aggregating eponymous laws like Pareto's principle and mental models to create frameworks that you can use as filters to make better decisions, create and stick to habits that lead to systems and results in achieving your goals in less time. So you're going to hear me refer back to eponymous laws and mental models. I study Charlie Munger, Naval Ravikant, Jocko Willing, Tim Ferriss, some of those guys. That's where I'm getting a lot of this information. But some of these laws are Pareto's principles, Parkinson's laws, Newton's law of motion, the compound effect, and momentum, essentialism, the one thing, all of those different books into this idea. And so when we read Tim Grover's book, Unstoppable, he classified the best of the best athletes as cleaners. There's closers right underneath the cleaner, and then there's a cooler. So you got a cooler, you got a closer, you got a cleaner. And I took it one step forward. We took it one step forward and said, okay, well, what the hell is a compressor? And a compressor, I'm an acronyms guy. I played in the NFL. I got hit in the head a lot. And so for me to remember things, I have to use acronyms. So what is a compressor? It's somebody who is confident. They have omnipresence. They're focused on magnitude and multitude. They're positive, patient, and present, resilient. They focus on excellence. They're stoic, strong, and open-minded, and they're results-oriented. So we've got all of those things. And I read all of these books, right? All of these books I still read on a regular basis, but I was so tired of reading personal development books that were saying the same thing over and over again in a different way. So I said, okay, let me take all of that and put it into one word. What is it? It's a compressor. And then I realized that goals don't work and goals suck. And I'm the goals guy. And so when you hear that from me, you're like, what do you mean that doesn't work? Well, goals, think about this, okay? So in the Olympics, you got all these people running the 100-yard dash. They all have the same goal. They all trained very, very hard to get there, but only one person gets the gold. Only one person gets the goal, right? So goals suck. What really matters is habits. Habits work. Disciplines work. Measuring actions work. Accountability works. And so I was all about finding ideas and concepts that are complete at the theoretical level, but they have to be effective at the applied level. I got to figure out what to do with what you just said. And if I don't understand it, I got to break that down into ways that I can. You add in accountability and social proof. Now that's a recipe for success. That is compression. And so it's all of these different ideas coming together into one word, into one mental model. We're creating a new mental model for people to understand. And if you don't read any of the personal development books, that's fine. Just listen to the podcast because they're all there. 8 years of me reading over 1,000 books and Jerome's input and saying, yeah, that's probably not right. You're not saying that the right way, and refining it and refining it. And then going out and applying this, right? I will blow $100 million out of the water this year. We'll probably do $100 million in 6 months. I'm going to say that again. $100 million in 6 months. I raise every single dollar to get into these projects. I find every single deal that we're doing. And so all of the things that everybody else is studying here on this call, where to find the money, where to find the deals, how to put them together, underwriting, we're doing that on a regular basis. Now I've applied leverage, right? This is this new thing that Jerome and I are talking about on compression a lot. Is there's 3 types of leverage. You've got people, you've got money, you've got technology, and you figure out how to use those 3 levers in your business in the right way. And once you do, once you have the strategy, you understand compression, and you apply leverage in the right way, you're going to be unstoppable. And so that's what we're about here. That's what compression is about. So hopefully I broke down the theoretical idea of compression and kind of made that more applied on the effective level. So that's what we're about here in compression. That's what I'm about, trying to do this on a regular basis. And, you know, like I mentioned earlier with Jocko Willink, excuses are like assholes. Everybody's got one and they all stink. Okay. Excuse my language there. Hopefully no kids were listening. My kids are upstairs, but that hits it home, right? I mean, everybody creates an excuse for why they didn't do something. Oh, well, COVID-19, you know, I didn't do any deals last year. Okay, that's fine. I bought 700 units and I had 39 units the year before. You know, we figured it out. We applied this. And so what I want folks to understand is in the commercial real estate world, you can apply compression in multiple different areas, but you have to know your sweet spot. The Japanese have an incredible Venn diagram called Ikigai. I love this Venn diagram. It's basically the intersection of your passion, your profession, your vocation, and your mission. So all of those things, what are you good at? What do you love? What does the world need? And what can you be paid for? And you find that sweet spot. Jerome calls it something a little bit different, but it's the same model. And I've started to focus more on that sweet spot and done nothing but stay in that sweet spot and protect that sweet spot. And now I've applied leverage in different ways that now I'm working in flow. I'm starting to figure out, okay, now I'm getting paid $10,000 an hour for the task that I'm doing, not $100 an hour. I've got the golden hours. I've got the 666 methodology. I've got all of these different mental models that says, okay, somebody just brought me a deal over in, where was it at? Pittsburgh, Kansas. They said, okay, well, how many units is it? It's 66 units. That's not enough for me to go into a submarket where I do not have a presence in, because I'm going to have to build that presence. And so I do not have a path to 250 units. Really quickly, I responded to that email and said the exact thing I just mentioned. Not for us, probably a great deal. That's fine, but it's not for us because it doesn't fit those criteria. So I have these decision filters that I'm not worried about something because I can run it through this mental model and filter. I can stay in the sweet spot very, very quickly. So I guess what I'm trying to say is there's ways to apply what I'm talking about to your business. Find your sweet spot, apply leverage. And once you do, you start to see those results. So I'm sweating. I don't know if anybody else is. I'm definitely sweating. I brought the fire there for a minute or two, but I think I'll pause on that and maybe air myself out here. I'm a big guy. I'm over here sweating. So I got all these lights on me.
So for me, the real value for such a large group is questions, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's working on something, somebody's
Let's do
working
it.
through something, somebody's stuck, somebody's trying to get moving, whatever it is. If you got the courage to bring it up now, give me and Logan an opportunity just to pour into you and see if we can help move you to the place you're trying to go. All of this stuff that we've done from a personal development standpoint over the past, for me, couple of decades. For Logan, he's been doing it at least 8 years, but I think it's probably been longer than that, is kind of useless if we don't share with other people. Sure, it'll make my life a little bit better. I can teach it to my kids, but I'm living in this significance part of my life where I'm trying to positively impact everybody I come in contact with. So, if you can jump off mute, put up your question, drop it in the chat, whatever it is that you feel comfortable. But now the only caveat here is we're going to give it to you straight, right? We're going to ask you questions. We're going to force you to be honest with yourself. And whatever we say is going to be from a place of love. But Logan and I are pretty hardcore. So come in, just know that we love you before we say anything. And we want you to get what you want because you said you want it.
Hey guys, thank you for taking the time tonight. I have a question. A stumbling block that I'm at is finding a solid deal flow. I'm finding things that are, been listed and have been sitting out there and not a lot of value in them. I'm ready to call brokers directly and build relationships with brokers. How did you guys take that step to putting yourself out there? I don't have any multifamily in my portfolio yet. How did you break that, I guess, barrier to start to call brokers and just put yourself out there and get the deals that maybe haven't been on the market yet or things like that?
Great question, James. And the first question I'm going to ask you back is, how many brokers know you by first name? How many are you texting on a regular basis?
Maybe one or two, maybe one actually.
Needs to be a minimum of 18. So I mentioned the 666 methodology beforehand, right? I don't know what markets you're focused on. I can't remember from the intro, but if you think about building relationships with brokers, everybody wants to go direct to seller. That's fine. But if you're not, are you in the market that you're investing in?
I'm in New York, so the answer no. I'm looking at Central and Northern Florida.
Okay.
I have connections down there that can help me make that happen.
Absolutely. Okay. So what I would do in this scenario is I would find 18 brokers in that market. You find 6 that are the top brokers in the market. Find the top 6 that if you could build a relationship with one of them over the next 12 months, it would completely change your business. So there's 6 there. There's 6 in the mid-range, right? So we got the top range, we've got the mid-range. These 6 folks are folks that if you did business with, it'd be great, but you probably need to do 3 to 5 transactions with them a year to really kind of have any substantial business from them. And then you find 6 that you can absolutely very quickly get on the phone with and start building a relationship with. So you've got 6 on the bottom end, 6 in the middle, and then you got 6 at top. You can call them elephant, deer, and field mice if you want. Again, I'm always thinking about things so I can remember them. And you want to be building a relationship with all 18 of those at one time. It takes a ton of time. It takes a ton of work. It's not easy to do. There's things that Jerome and other folks can help you with in relation to building credibility, but think about that methodology, that mental model of the 666. Find those. That's your step one, in my opinion, is finding those 18 that you can start trying to build a relationship with. The one tip that I have for building relationships with top brokers in a new market or a market you're trying to get into is on the offering memorandum. You're going to see Logan Freeman up top, but underneath Logan Freeman, you're going to see Alex Olson. You're going to see somebody else that's more accessible. You need to find those folks, and those people drop down to the 6 that you can get in touch with, and you know that you're working to get to that top person. That's step one. Step two, COVID made this a little bit more difficult, but getting to that market and meeting those people face to face is invaluable. So those are my 2 things, and I'll let Jerome jump in from there.
Thank you.
James, what size deal are you looking to buy?
Maybe a 25 minimum, 25 and up.
25 to what's the top end?
No peak on that.
That can't be true, because you got to raise money to buy the deal. How much money can you raise? Give me a top end of the range. You got to know what you want to buy.
25 to 100.
Okay, 25 to 100. I still think that's a pretty broad range, but because you can't manage a 25 unit the same way you manage 100 unit. And so I would probably shrink that down some, because, on-site property management is very different from something where you're going to have third-party property manager where they're just peeking over on the property. If you're trying to buy something that I'll call under $50, right? And I think that's realistic for the first deal. You are going to have a whole lot more success going direct to seller, right? Because they own the majority of those deals.
That's right.
Right. And so Logan, as a broker, and every other broker that you're talking to, is going to be calling on those same folks. The issue is some of those folks don't want to work with a broker because the broker is going to take anywhere from 3 to 6% of their money. And so if you can bring them, if you can get in contact with those folks, and the way we teach in our course is you either mail, phone, or text message. Right. And we prefer mail because the majority of those folks that have a lot of their owner equity tied up in the property are in the 50 to 75 range. They still go to the mailbox and they still open that mail. Right. And so when they open that mail, they see that letter from you and your phone number, especially with COVID, they probably are self-managing their own property. And so the pain that they have is that those folks aren't paying them rent because they're buddy-buddy with their residents. Well, they don't have cash flow anymore because that building's probably paid off. They're ready to sell. And so the faster that you can get in front of those folks, build rapport, the quicker that you get to a deal. Logan's strategy long range is going to bring you deals, right? But in the short range, if you're trying to do a deal in the next 3 to 6 months, right, as far as getting under contract, getting direct to the owner is the fastest way that you get there. The other thing I will tell you is that if it's a listed deal, something that a broker has under contract, that broker has a fiduciary responsibility to get the maximum amount of money for that property that they can. They work for the owner of the property, not you. And so you're not going to find something with meat on the bone because everybody in the various networking groups are willing to pay more than what you're willing to pay because all they have to do is create 6 or 8% return. The issue with that, and the issue with that is if it's your first deal, if it's your first couple of deals, you don't have any cushion if something goes wrong. You don't have any cushion if something goes wrong. And I'll be honest with you, your first deal, it's highly likely that something's going to go wrong. And so you want to buy something that has some cushion. You want to get to somebody who is an educator on how the market is trading. Right? In Greensboro, Lawrence and I looked at a deal. It went under contract at $63,000 a door. We were looking to buy the property in the 40s. We can't compete with something that's been actively marketed. And oh, by the way, I looked at it 6 months before it went to market, direct from the owner. So Just keep that in the back of your head. Like the broker has a fiduciary responsibility. So if you're going to brokers to do your first deal, you're going to pay through the nose because that's what the market's doing. People are parking cash. They're not trying to get equity play. They're not trying to produce maximum yield. They're just trying to park cash. You can't compete with those folks.
I'm
It's a
seeing
losing
that.
strategy.
I'm
So
seeing that a
James,
lot. Yeah.
the way that we go direct to owners, because I do most of my work off market on the acquisition side, think through four things. The right people. Okay, so you need to work on honing in your addressable market. So if you know that 25 to 100 units is where you want to focus on, have somebody pull those units for you and start sending the brokers. These are the properties that I'm interested in. They might have one, or they might talk to an owner, and they can get you in the door. The right problem. You got to understand what their problem is. Jerome just touched on that. They don't want to work with a broker. That's fine. Give them the right solution. And the last thing is the right time. You got to make it the right time for them. I just dropped that into the chat box. Everybody, you can just steal that from me. I spent 2 hours brainstorming with our acquisitions associate, and the knowledge that I just dropped into that chat box is probably worth $1,000, if not more. So the right time, the right solution, the right person, and the right problem.
Logan, you apply that across $100 million in deals, I would say it's probably worth 25 million at least. I
Yeah.
mean,
So just
because
think through
you're
that.
solving the problem for them. I mean, it's huge. And but anyway, James, is that helpful, or do you have
Yeah.
follow up?
No, that's great. Going direct to the sellers is a strategy that we had considered, and we're going to definitely pursue that. You know, get past the brokers, and also I do want to build the relationships with the brokers. So
Yep.
very helpful, guys. Thank you.
And I'll tell you, the brokers are a whole lot nicer to you when you got a deal that you
Oh,
close.
no doubt, no doubt.
Hey, this is Aaron. It's exciting to hear everyone on the call, looking to partner and do business together. For me, frankly, I find it to be, to put it nice, intimidating, to put it blunt, kind of crazy, because to me, like, you guys are all strangers. So I'm curious. I mean, really, anybody who has any thoughts, what do you do to get to know or vet people as you are going through your day-to-day real estate business?
I wrote an article on this topic exactly on Bigger Pockets. I'm a contributor over there. I just dropped that into the chat. So the main thing, well, there's two things. The first being, take it slow, and you have to understand the 6 signs of predicting behavior from Robin Dreek, Sizing People Up, that book. You don't have to go read the book, but find an article that you wrote and reach out to Jerome or myself. We'll get you the recording when we had him on to our book club. But you have to know what each other is bringing to the table, and you have to understand their values. And the hard part about partnering is when you're coming from different experience backgrounds, or one person has more than somebody else. That usually is hard to get a partnership going, unless that person that's on the higher rung is built a model to do that. And what I mean by that is you always feel like in a partnership, one person is just taking from the other, and it's not kind of a give and take. And so you have to know what each person is bringing to the table. And I expand a lot on this in this Bigger Pockets article. I think I lay it out very well. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that. I want to let Jerome speak to that. But the 6 signs of predicting behavior from Robin Dreek is a model that I use to evaluate everybody that we're working with, investors and vendors, and any type of co-GPs that we might bring into projects. And then the second piece is make sure the partner that you're, in my opinion, make sure you're finding a partner that brings, it doesn't have to be just experience. One person can have a ton of experience. Maybe somebody else has the capital, but those need to be equal in some capacity. You can't feel like somebody's always doing something for the other person. Those are my 2 things, and I'll let Jerome speak to this at length because this is his topic.
Yeah, it is my topic because I don't have the gift of discernment. I just assume that people are going to show up and engage and interact in the way that I am. And I was fortunate enough that Logan reached out off of a cold call about 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago now. and we've been together ever since. And the thing that I messed up, everybody's heard of know, like, and trust. Dan Hanford talks about the triad. Lawrence Latty talks about the funnel, right? And so at the top of the funnel is know. The next level is like. The bottom level of the funnel is trust. More people have to know you, or the more people who know you, they get opportunity to like you, then they get opportunity to trust you. Trust and like, I used to confuse. So if I like a person and I think they're great, then I just trusted them automatically. I thought those things were the same thing. Trust has absolutely nothing to do with like. Trust is the ability to predict what the person's going to do. So given a situation, what is this person going to do? How are they going to respond? Right. And if you listen to I can't remember the number, but it was in the teens when Logan had a situation happen and we went down to different scenarios. And before we got through the scenarios, I already knew what he was going to do, but I can predict what he's going to do. And so, Aaron, your question is, how do we partner with somebody? You can partner with people when you know what they're going to do. And the main thing that I look for is, do your stated values and your actions line up? If those two things line up, then we've got a great foundation, right? Got a great foundation. If your stated values and morals and your actions align, then we got to, and here's a perfect example. So Lawrence mentioned, or I think Aaron, maybe it was you, mentioned the conference a few weeks ago. Logan got to go on his first vacation since having kids with his wife Taylor that weekend. He said, man, I really want to be at the conference. He said, but I can't because I'm building my business around my life. And this is what we're doing. His stated values are that his family comes first and then everything else comes around. Such that after being a part of it, we still figured out how to make it work. But he decided that that was a more important, or that was the right decision based on the things that he's living out. He wants to live out his morals and values. The thing that I see early on, and I made this mistake, when you're trying to get in a multifamily deal, you partner because somebody has experience or because they have money. And if you partner just because of that, you're always going to run into a brick wall. If you're partnering with somebody just because they have money or just because they have experience and you haven't checked any of the other stuff, you're going to run into a brick wall going 60 miles an hour. I did this in my first deal. I partnered with people who I didn't actually know. We got into a situation. It didn't work out the way that I thought it was going to work out. Basically, I was ignored. And so now we've personally guaranteed a multi-million-dollar loan. And I'm trying to figure out how we're going to navigate this. And this is the reality of the situation. When you get into these partnerships, Aaron, I really appreciate this question. You are getting married. Sure, there's an end date on the marriage, right? Somewhere between 5 to 7 years, depending on the business plan. But you're financially tying yourself together. You are financially tying yourself together. So you need to know your partner. How do you get to know them, which is the real question that you asked? The 6 signs from Robin Dreek's book. Actually spending enough time with them and seeing if their stated values and morals are being lived out by their actions. And the one thing that I really like the most is, do they own their mistakes? Are they honest with themselves? Because most people are delusional. Most people are delusional. They think that they're doing this, that, or the third, and they are not anywhere close to performing at the level they think they are. And they are quick to blame other people for the things that are happening in the world. I don't have any deals. Well, the guy that's on our team is responsible for deals. So because he's not doing his job, I don't have any deals. And we could go down the list. If they don't own their piece of the pie, they're not going to own it when you get into a partnership. And they're going to be pointing at you as the reason why something isn't working. And that's the last thing you want when you're in the middle of a fight. Because when you get into your deal, you are going to be in a dogfight in the beginning until you can tame that property. Properties are wild animals, usually, especially if you buy something that's got a value add component, right? People probably aren't paying. There's some deferred maintenance. There's some things happening in the walls and under the building you don't know anything about. And it's going to take money. It's going to take time. It's going to be a deviation from the plan that you put together. And those things require patience and true partnership. if you don't have that coming in, if you don't have understanding and grace coming in, it's going to be infighting within the team. And the last thing you want to do, again, when you're in a war, is have a fight in your own foxhole. Was that helpful, Aaron?
Extremely. No, actually, well, first I wanted to thank you for the book reference. I have heard you talk about that on your podcast. I had another smaller kind of personal question for Logan. You talked about, what time you get up. I'm always curious with successful people, how much sleep do you actually get most nights?
Yeah, I average about 6 hours and 37 minutes worth of sleep, and I track it religiously through this beautiful watch that I wear every single night. My goal is to get to 7 hours, but I have figured out for me, with the water that I drink, the diet that I have, and the physical activity that I put out, 7 hours is pretty well the amount that I need. So I'm not quite there yet, but I'm getting there. So 6.5 is kind of my number, Aaron.
Cool.
I sleep less than Logan, just in case you were wondering.
Get more
Yeah.
sleep, Jerome.
I sleep until I wake up,
Okay.
and I don't use uppers or downers, so my body's rested. I
Cool.
let it tell me when it's time to get up.
I have a quick question for Lawrence. So more on like the personal side, I imagine since you were in the NFL, you never had a problem with like working hard, but from a personal standpoint, what are some challenges that you overcome as you started this new venture? And what were some like personal challenges, or what were some ways in which you overcame them? I'd love to know, and thank you again for taking the time to spread the knowledge to us as we're learning.
That's a great question, Kofi. I would say there's a couple buckets that I would say. The first being is the human piece, right? And I'm in the real estate business, and so I deal with people that own real estate on a regular basis, and so and I also partner. I have 2 partners at our company, and so building those relationships, keeping them strong, making sure that the communication is open is a huge challenge on a regular basis. So that's the first. The second would be there's a knowledge challenge. And so I overcame that knowledge challenge by, one, putting in the time in relation to educating myself, but then also getting involved in the piece of actually getting into transactions through the brokerage business before I started to own real estate. So I got to experience over 85 transactions with a $50 million funds capital before I was able to, or before I ever bought my first piece of real estate. So really I had 85 to 90 kind of transactions under my belt before I owned something. So that was a big challenge for me. Is when I wanted to get started, I said, well, maybe I should take 12 to 15 months and learn this business. Sure, I can read. Yes, I can go through programs. That's important. But what also is important is actually getting out there and transacting real estate. And so, I got past the knowledge gap there. And then it's just, it's time management for me. There is so many. We have 7 full-time employees at FTW, our company now. And so each one of them needs my time. I also have obviously my wife and 2 children. And I also need to pour into myself and have my cup. So it's time management, understanding what can take me to the next level and what can be delegated or what can just get off my plate completely. And I'm not the best at that. I'm working through that. But I would say it was knowledge, it was time, it's time management, and then it's relationship management. Those are the 3 challenges I've had to kind of overcome, and I'm still overcoming them on a regular basis. And I think that's going to probably be true in just about everybody's business. But that's kind of the 3 that I would start with there.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course.
Come on, give me some more. I'm warmed up now. I'm ready to go.
I'd love to hear kind of your experience in that same regard of any personal challenges that you face. I always know that learning from my predecessors is very valuable. So I'd love to hear your experience as well in that regard.
Man, I don't know where to begin. Let me see. So for those of you who I haven't met, I had my last job in corporate America was building a $20 million Division 4 Fortune 500. I was employee number 2. In 8 or 9 months, we had 175 employees on my team. And my reward for that was laying people off. We had to leave about half of those folks on the sidelines going into the next year. I had never had to do anything like that before. It sucked, like on so many different levels for me. In fact, I promised myself I would never do it again. Fast forward to the next year, Thanksgiving, we're having the same conversation. And what I had to decide was if I was still going to keep doing things for money, because I was in the job because it paid really well and it had a bunch of different perks. And when I made the decision that I wasn't going to just do things for money anymore, my life changed. Probably the pendulum swung the other way, where I was searching for meaning and searching and seeking significance, only to find that there's a whole lot more to life to money. And I realized that the real value, our real value on this earth, each and every one of us on this call, is our ability to positively impact the lives of other people. And so I've been on that mission ever since I left corporate America. And it's my goal to just help people live out and manifest the dreams that they have deep inside of them that they've been putting off to the side because of all the reasons they say they have to keep doing the thing. I've created this lifestyle for my family, so I can't go do this because I'll inconvenience them or make them uncomfortable. I'm here to tell you that you got to do it, because there's the potential that because you choose not to do it, that there's a whole line of other people behind you who won't be able to do their thing because they're looking for you to be that example. And that's a whole lot heavier than what most people want. But I do believe that to be a truth, and I found it to be extremely accurate for the people that we've been able to spend time with.
Thank you for sharing.
So, I mean, to both you guys, and I want to say thank you again for helping be on here with Lawrence. A lot of good attendance right here too, Lawrence. So you know, I hear you, Logan. I hear both you guys. What about the days when you guys are tired? You guys are exhausted. You guys feel like, oh man, I don't have it. You know, a lot of times I hear people say, hey, I'm gonna keep going. But what is your inner motivation on those days where you feel like, man, I'm just exhausted from the world? I've been going 100 miles per hour and I just don't know where to go at.
Who's
Jerome,
first on this?
you want to take that first?
Yeah. Oh man. So steps on soapbox, right? Here's the thing, man. If you're that tired, then take a break, right? Take a break. But for me, I'm obsessed with the outcome. And so it wakes me up every day. And when I sleep, I'll be honest with you, it haunts me. Like the folks that I get to work with on a weekly basis, like the things that they're working on, when I can tell they're invigorated and super passionate about it, it wakes me up. And it's like, okay, well, if we connect this dot, or we connect this person with this person, or we find this resource for them, then it's going to allow them to get one step closer to the thing that they're trying to create. And so for me, there really isn't rest because it's all consuming. I'm totally obsessed and addicted to the outcome. But if you're that tired, rest. It's okay.
I'll take that and compound on top of that, right? So, Aaron, this is every day for me. I'll take a different approach. I wake up every single day and wishing that I could sleep just a little bit longer. But then I have create a habit loop in my brain that says you are the type of person that gets up and works on your morning routine. You are the type of person that is getting up and spending time focusing on your faith, your family, your fitness, and your future, because you're willing to work like nobody else will right now so you can live like nobody else has the opportunity to later. So there's a couple methodologies that I utilize in that. One is identity, right? So who do you identify with? You know, when you know you got to work out, do you identify with somebody who says, yeah, I'm tired, I'm not going to, or like Jerome, when it's snowing outside and his shoes are soaking wet from the day before, do you lace them up? Do you put your foot in them, the cold shoes, and do you walk outside and do it? Right. So there's a part of that. That's the Jocko Willink kind of extreme ownership, discipline equals freedom mentality. That's great. I think that's important. But then there's the identity piece of understanding your why. And everybody talks about your why, but I write down my why every single day, usually right around 3:45 a.m. And I have a very convicting, strong why. It takes me 7 minutes and 27 seconds to write every single day. You imagine writing something for 7 years now. It's changed over time, but I write that down. It's ingrained in who I am. I identify with somebody who focuses on those things. So that's who I am. So acting in any way outside of that is not holding myself accountable. And I feel not guilt, but I don't feel like the person that I know that I actually am. So there's the identity piece. Now, that's one part of it is understanding your why, the identity, all of that. When the going gets tough, when there's days that hit you in the face and knock you off your rocker and everything blows up in front of you, you have a choice. So Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, said between stimulus and a response, there's a choice and there's a story that you get to make. And so in that story, you get to tell yourself that story. You control that. There's a difference between an emotion and a feeling. An emotion is something that happens to you. A feeling is your definition of that emotion that happens. And so there's that piece as well. I utilize the Tony Robbins triad. So there's, you change, it's a triad, right? So you can change one of three things when you're feeling like crap and you're tired and you're not motivated or you're not inspired. I don't like the word motivate. Inspired means in spirit. And it's change your focus. So what do you focus on? Change your physiology, get up and move, or change your language. What are you telling yourself? You change one of those three, it usually works. You change all three of them, you can completely change the way that you feel. So I think there's an emotional intelligence piece to that component as well, but there's an identity piece in that part as well. And so when I think about this compound effect and understanding that what I do today is not going to necessarily yield results right now, but it will yield results in the future. They always say that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. That's true. If I think about 10 years from now, am I going to look back to April 6th and regret being on here with you guys? Probably not. Am I going to regret not coming or making an excuse to not being here and sharing this story and trying to answer questions to better? Yes, most definitely. And so whenever I think about waking up early, working out, eating healthy, not drinking too much, all of those different things, I think about, man, it's going to feel good if I do those things right now, but how am I going to feel 10 years from now when I look back? And I know the compound effect works because it's worked in my own life. I've used it to be cut from the NFL and lose 120 pounds, get over my father dying of drug and alcohol abuse, all of these different things. I've used the same mentality. And so I've seen it. I've hit rock bottom. Jerome's hit rock bottom. Probably everybody here has potentially hit close to a rock bottom. And I've come out of that. And so that's how I kind of approach that. I hope that was somewhat helpful. It's identity. It's having something to utilize, the triad or something of that effect to allow you to get out of that state of emotional not well-being, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So having a trigger that you can actually use to get out of that quick, because in Mel Robbins' book, The 5-Second Rule, is not one that I talk about a lot but
it's a good one.
It's a great one. You have 5 seconds to make a decision. You know the decision that you should make. At the end of the 5 seconds, you just get up and move. She's got a lot of examples around how that works, but I utilize that in my life too. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's at least my approach to it, Aaron.
Aaron, Logan triggered me. So let me just add this in, right? Most of the time when people say they're tired, it's because there's something that they don't want to do that they have to do. If you change have into get, I get to do this. For me, I get to run 6 miles in the morning. Nobody really wants to run that far, right? At least I don't.
Facts.
I get to do that. You just change in those small words. Logan talked about language, and that's what triggered me. It'll help you get to the spot. And if the story, or if it's something that you truly don't enjoy, then figure out a way where you don't have to do that. Right? I think we go from thing to thing in our lives, and we're doing a bunch of stuff that we don't actually want to do. Like, figure out how to manage that out of your life. Perfect example for me is when I was flipping houses. I would go to Home Depot 2 and 3 times a day, and Lowe's. I said, I don't want to go to Lowe's anymore. You know how many times I've been to Lowe's this year? Once. And I'm scared to go back. I need to get some fertilizer, but I just don't want to go. I worked so hard to get that out of my life. I don't want to get back to that. And that's the whole identity piece. And so hopefully that helps. But that Logan triggered me when he was talking about the identity, because that's really solid.
No, I think that helps. I mean, I think both of you guys for what you both said. I mean, that's a real inspirational. And my man Robert Alagona asked Logan, what position did you play in NFL?
I was an offensive lineman, and so I played. I went in as a center. I moved over to guard for a little bit, and then I was cut. But I was an offensive lineman, 335 pounds at the NFL Combine.
You know what? I don't want to keep you up because I respect people's time. And Jerome, there you go. Jerome and Logan, awesome. I want to say thank you. Hold on. Time out. I got to get something done here. Hold on. I got to get something here. Hold on. Oh my gosh.
That's why I love you, Jerome. Love seeing you hug your dog.
Hold on. My computer's on fire.
Oh,
House is on fire. Hold it. Listen, I really want to thank Jerome and Logan for tonight. This was awesome. I mean, I tell you, it's gonna be fire. This is fire, breathing, living fire, peanut butter and jelly. Good. This is what this is.
Hey, compressors, if something you heard struck you, made you feel a little bit uncomfortable, good. Head on over to compressionpodcast.com. And then you can also subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts at. If you feel inclined to, please leave us a review. It's obviously helpful. But instead, I'm going to call you out today. I'm going to call you out and make sure that you do your part, sharing this message by sharing it with one person that might need to hear what we talked about today. Be great. Nothing else pays.